nerd fight here, man.
Oh, yeah, well,
Okay, we're all set?
my computer.
Okay. All right, so the whole thing about my talk is basically a lot of people see my laptop and my desktop and how things are set up and say, how did you do that? How do I make things look that way? So this whole talk is basically how I've made my laptop look the way it does. Tremendous amount of waste of time, much like compiling Gen 2 endlessly, but I like my desktop to look pretty. What we're going to cover, terminal, various things on the desktop, how to use and create your own applets, which is a lot easier than you'd think. Terminals, the three that I like as far as cosmetically, A-term, E-term, and console. The reason I like those three is they do pseudo-transparency, which I happen to like a lot, which is these, fake transparent terms. They just take the background, they grab a chunk of it, throw it into the background of the term. If you throw anything behind that term, you don't see it. It's not really transparent. It just pretends like it is. They vary in their features. That's what I covered. Console and E-term do a lot more than A-term does. A-term is really basic, and it's actually the one that I'm running now because the only feature out of all those that I actually like to use a lot is the pseudo-transparency. And it's easy to get them all to hide a lot of the extra decorations. That's A-term, kind of fuzzying out of resolution. That is a much better picture of it. E-term has a lot of features in there. It's got its own set of custom backgrounds. It's got a thing called, I believe, porthole, where you can basically, as you move it around the desktop, the background that is in it changes based on it's like it's doing the pseudo-transparency with an image that's not actually on your desktop. So as you move your terminal around, the image changes in relation to where the terminal's at, but it's not actually your background. I don't use that. I don't use a lot of it. I mean, it's neat that it's there, but I just don't think it's that aesthetically pleasing for the most part. Console can be very pretty. When I'm in KDE, I always run console, and this makes the most sense. It doesn't make a lot of sense to run it when you're not in KDE, so that's why I don't run it in Fluxbox. It does the same stuff I like to do with A-term and with E-term. It's also easy to hide all of the window decorations in KDE, which is what you have there, and which is what I have with these over here. As far as where to get good wallpaper, themes, icon sets for the different desktops, these are the three sites that I recommend. Basically everything I have came from one of these three sites if I didn't make it myself. And again, just because it says KDE look or GNOME look, a lot of it's wallpaper. Wallpaper for one is going to work on the other. I mean, it's just wallpaper, much like it's going to work in Fluxbox. A lot of the icons and things, even though they're intended for KDE or GNOME, you can use them in Fluxbox. You can use them in one of the others. These aren't complicated things. It's not like you're necessarily bound by they intended it for KDE. The window manager I prefer the most is Fluxbox. There's a few issues with it. One of them is it doesn't have the ability to set its own background. So all the stuff that comes in Fluxbox by default is really, I should say, it doesn't have the ability to set its own background. It can't set its own wallpaper. It can do just like a solid color. So all the default stuff is really boring. It's just like flat black, flat blue, nothing really exciting. To get it to set actual wallpaper, you have to install something else that can do that. ESetRoot is part of E-term. There's, I believe, HSetRoot. There's a few other things out there. Either ESetRoot or HSetRoot will do what you need, which is let Fluxbox set a background. It's got a tool called FBSetBG Fluxbox, set background. All it does is looks around and sees, is there anything out there that can actually set wallpaper? And if there is, cool, I'll let you set wallpaper. So you can use that command and it abstracts that away, but it doesn't do anything on its own. If you're running KD, you're running GNOME, obviously it can set wallpaper on its own. That is what my desktop generally looks like. There's a lot going on. Random wallpaper I pulled off of DeviantArt, I think. Bunch of transparent A terms. Transparent and with the window decorations turned off, which is a nice thing in Fluxbox. And I didn't put a slide in here for that. If you're using Fluxbox, all your configs are in .fluxbox, and there's a file in there called keys. What you want to do if you want to change your window decorations, there is an entry in here. You'll notice mod 1 F12. Mod 1 by default is almost always going to be your alt key. And you notice all the entries in here for the most part are using mod 1. It's not necessarily the case, and you can map it to whatever you want, but it's probably going to be alt. So what I'm doing here, I'm saying if you hit alt and F12, toggle decor. And toggle decor means that. Taking the title bar, the little border. There's not much in this theme I have, but the little bit of border there is, that all goes away. In the background, I've got a little thing called root-tail running, which is an utter total waste of time. You could do the same thing with tail-f. This just is prettier. Either way it accomplishes the same thing. Running your logs on the back of your screen if there's things you like to monitor. Most of what I monitor really isn't that important anyways, but I just like knowing what's going on my laptop. Root tail, it's root-tail. There's a few different versions. They all do the same thing. Very simple to compile. Or just take one of these terminals and run it fully transparent and run tail-f in it with the logs. It'll look the same just without the color. Same results really. What I also have here, another thing a lot of people ask me about, the gcrellum that I run to monitor things on the left-hand side here. That's a theme called clearellum, and it does what it sounds like. It just provides a clear theme for gcrellum. It looks a lot better than the ones that come with it. A lot of people don't bother to skin or to get themes or anything for gcrellum. It's really ugly if you don't. So, I have, it can look a lot different than it actually does by default. The clearellum has a few different colors. So a lot of people don't know that gcrellum can actually not look like utter crap. Another neat thing about it, there's actual modules you can get for gcrellum. That looks kind of ugly. Back, then you loaded. It has its own plugins basically. You can have plugins that go into gcrellum that let you run XMMS from it, that let you view your Wi-Fi status, things like that. And those can come in handy. It's really full featured, just a lot of people don't necessarily take advantage of that. Fluxbox icons. This is another thing a lot of people don't know about. The themes don't use it by default, but Fluxbox can stick icons in the menus. And that's a little screenshot of that. There are scripts out there that will do this for you, notably Gen 2. Gen 2 has something that will generate your Fluxbox menu for you, generate icons and all that stuff. I just don't really trust tools like that to know what programs I want in my menu, so I do it myself. If you want to add these to your menu yourself, that is, again, in the .fluxbox directory, there is a menu entry, and you add a line like this, and that's a lot easier to read. Probably I can bring up, okay, and then you'll notice, all these entries where you see icons. You see that first entry, eTerm, and actually it's kind of run on line. That's the Firefox line. The second line there, Firefox, little Firefox logo. then you see the second line there. At the very end, there's a path to where the icon is at. I don't recall there being a whole lot of restrictions on the icons. I think they might have had to be 256 colors at the most. They've got to be XPM files. And I've stolen icons out of lots of other desktop environments and window managers. Things were meant for KD or GNOME or XFC or whatever. They will work just fine in Fluxbox. They're just, they're going to be smaller. Great big icons aren't going to fit into that menu. Desktop epaulets. This is another really cool thing. There are lots of things like this out there. You got dock apps, super Karamba themes, G-desklets, A-desklets. They are all basically different ways of doing the same thing. The Window Maker dock apps are what I have running on the top of gcrellum there. gcrellum actually runs in Fluxbox. It has a thing called the slit, which is kind of a legacy thing they took out of Window Maker. That's this whole bar that I've got on the left side of the screen. You can move it around. You dock things in it. I've docked gcrellum in it. And then these dock apps, that's where they get their name. They are docked into the bar on the side of the screen. The top one there, that tells me about the status of my wireless, which apparently I'm not associated with anything. The little bar at the bottom is a signal. The right above it is my MAC address. Very handy. Rather than bothering to run ifconfig or iwconfig, I can just look and I can see what my IP is, what my gateway is, all that good stuff. And then just below it, this it tells me the weather. You click on it and it'll tell me more specifically what the weather is. Yes, it looks very ghetto. It looks, like old stuff. But it works well in Fluxbox, and it works well in Window Maker, anything that uses a slit where you can put dock apps in it. The thing about dock apps, if you're interested in doing this, writing your own, they really suck to write. I never actually bothered to do it because when I looked into it, I saw I'd have to write a few hundred lines of C just to have boilerplate to make anything on the screen. If you're a programmer, that's probably trivial. I'm not, so I would rather do something a lot easier, which ended up being super Karamba. So your mileage may vary. If you are a programmer, you might like these a lot, and they are lightweight and they work really well in lightweight window managers like Window Maker, Blackbox, Fluxbox, Lightmint, anything that supports Window Maker applets. And dockapps.org is really, really full of lots and lots of dock apps that will do pretty much anything you could think of. A-desklets, like most of the other desktop applets, they're written in Python. A-desklets use imlib2, which is used by eterm and esetroot. So if you already have eterm on your system, you're already using this library, so it's not a new dependency for you. They're also relatively lightweight. That's one of the things they're aiming for, is something that is very lightweight. The problem with these, there's not really that many of them. It seems really interesting, neat stuff, but if there's not one that does what I want, it's not that cool for me unless I want to write my own. G-desklets, on the other end, there's a ton of. They were targeted for GNOME, obviously, for the name, but they're really pretty platform neutral. You don't have to run them in GNOME. There's no heavy dependencies there, and they are also written in Python. And that URL was on a couple sites back. It's like gdesklets.org, I think. The Super Karamba themes were the ones that were the most attractive to me because I do run KD on my desktop, which already has all the libraries for this loaded. And there's a ton of these out there on kdlook.org and on Super Karamba's own website. They're written in Python, and they're really, really easy to create your own, which is what I wanted to do. I looked at all these, and I found that basically this was really easy. I wrote a theme in like 20 lines of code, and I wouldn't even really call it code. That's kind of a stretch, as opposed to 200 or 300 lines of C for a dock app. That is all of the code I uncommented for the theme that I have running on my desktop. This is not doing a whole lot since I don't have a net connection, but this basically shows me the last thing that changed in Slackware current, and it shows me the recent changes. It also could be looking a lot prettier. You can make these, you can have these be transparent. In fact, there should be some other Super Karamba themes out here. No. And again, I'm really not much of a coder, but I was able to throw together a Super Karamba theme very easily. Basically, it just parses a bunch of, it calls a bunch of basic shell scripting stuff, shell commands. You know, things like cut, things like grep. It calls links, very, very simple stuff. If you know a little bit about using a Unix machine, you could throw one together very trivially. I'm looking for which one of these looks really cool. Oh, this is kind of neat. Assuming it loads. One thing I will say about these Super Karamba themes, they are a lot more reliable in KDE than in Fluxbox. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to run one in Fluxbox. I basically am because I'm stubborn and it was easy to throw together. In KDE, they make a lot of sense. In other desktops, not quite as much. To explain what's going on, kind of in the theme, you know, with a few more comments. Basically, this is just saying, setting the background, telling us the size of the Karamba theme, setting the shadow, because it's got a shadow as well, what font to use, font size, color of the font. I mean, really fairly intuitive stuff. This prints the line. You see the very next line, Slackware current, last change, Slackware current, last change. It just prints that text, prints it in that color, prints it with a shadow. You know, pretty basic. Grabs the data last change, it just runs links, dumps out the Slackware change log, which is a text file, and you know, grabs the top of it, and then prints that next line, recent changes. Grabs the names of the last 5 packages that are changed. Again, really basic, just command line scripting. Grabs that same file, grabs through it, and gives me the last 5 changes. And then the last thing that it does, it creates the ability for me to click on that, and if we were actually online, that would pull up. Yeah, it would pull up the whole change log in a little window there. Okay, there we go. And then you can see the little dock app on the left now pops up. I've got an IP, I've got a netmask, I've got a gateway, you know, all that good stuff. And then this thing is going to go ahead and try to grab that, and it's going to pop up in little red text with the last change and with the recent changes. Yeah, this is basically, it's calling, part of KDE is a thing called KDialog. And it's basically a really simple way to throw up a text box, or a few different kinds of boxes. In this case, KDialog text box. Throwing that up with the change log that we've just grabbed, and telling it size 600 by 500. And again, this is probably not even the most optimal way to do a Super Karamba theme, but it works, and it was really easy. I'm calling stuff I already knew how to use. I'm calling shell commands. I'm calling a KDE dialog command. I didn't have to really know much about Super Karamba to do that. And that's one of the things I really liked about it. There's a screenshot of what it looks like when it's running. It's pretty much what you're looking at, except there's little red text with the last changes, date of the last change, and the last few packages that have changed. Yeah, it's trying to bring this up. So part of the point about that, and one of the things I like about this desktop, there's a lot of things like that you can do to improve your own experience. In my case, I didn't see anything that did what I wanted, which was, sit on my desktop and tell me when packages and Slackware changed. There we go. And it pops a little KDialog, Slackware change log. It was very, very trivial for me to just throw something together and, okay, well, now I know. If there's something it's similar that you want to do, it's very easy to make that happen. It's a very powerful thing about these tools. Yeah, so very simple. It's just a text file popping up. And that's pretty much it for the slides. Things I don't have on the slides there. This is my Fluxbox desktop. On my machine at home, I run KDE. KDE is really, 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 really themable, as opposed to Fluxbox, where I'm kind of, putting a few different small things together. I'm not going into as much detail on that because it's really, really intuitive. On that kdelook.org website, there are lists of, they separate things up. You have full desktop themes. You have just like mouse themes. Just wallpaper, things like that. There'll be tarballs that you download. You download those tarballs, and in KDE's desktop control panel, you just basically point and click, give it the path to that, and it will install that theme, and you can switch over to that theme. It'll change the look of everything on the desktop. One of the things that's really nice in KDE is a set of icons called umicons. They're the most cracked out, weird icons you'll ever see. He has like robotic monkeys and panda bears and rolls of toilet paper, and it's really, really bizarre. Let's see if I have those on here. They're hands down the coolest looking thing I've ever found for Linux. These are kind of hard to see. There we go. These are umicons. These are really, really cool. These are up on kdelook.org. And these are usable in other things. In this case, these are all PNGs. KDE is using PNGs. These will not work for the Fluxbox menu, but they'll work for anything that'll take a PNG. And they're very unique. A lot of these things don't match up with any particular application. He just felt like, well, loaf of bread. You should have a loaf of bread. I'm sure there's something you can do with that. I have no idea what this guy's thought process is, but there's an insane number of these, and a lot of them are just very, very strange. These combined with a nice theme off KDE Look will make your KDE desktop look a lot better than the defaults with the kind of boring wallpaper, and I believe they use the crystal icons by default. These are much better. I think that covers most of what I can think of as far as what I had in mind to discuss. I'm sure there are questions. Anyone? Cal?
Can you do animated backgrounds for your wallpaper?
KDE supports some animated backgrounds. As I don't know of any way to do it in Fluxbox trivially. If there's probably a tool somebody's written that does it. KDE can do the same kind of stuff like you can do in Windows, where you can have like internet content. It's basically they've implemented their own version of Active Desktop. You can have content off the internet in there. I believe it'll pull in TV channels. The other cool thing you can do in KDE's desktop, it doesn't just, you can take any arbitrary static wallpaper and throw it up there, but you can apply things on top of that. For example, let's say I want a gradient, so the left-hand side of my screen is a little lighter and the right-hand screen is a little darker, and I can actually have a KDE throw a gradient on top of my background and do that so that maybe something that I run on the right hand of the screen is a little more visible just in that area, rather than actually have to take it into the GIMP and edit it and have that image hard set to being, you know, however you thought you wanted right that minute. KDE just does it on the fly. And it has a lot of little options to do gradients, to apply different colors on top of the wallpaper that's there. Lots of really cool stuff. David?
I can't remember. I don't know if it was somebody that was running this on a Mac or not, but they had a camera that was built into their machine, and they basically would point the camera in the opposite direction of their screen, and that would actually form the background, and it would actually move.
Oh.
If people walk behind it, I mean, you'd basically be looking at the screen and seeing what's behind it.
Did you see a video of this or a photograph of this?
It was a video.
Okay, because there's a photograph trick that does that I'm thinking of. A video I haven't seen. That's pretty cool.
Well, it's actually like a live desktop. I can't remember where it was.
Because what
San Francisco.
Okay, because what a lot of people have done posting on the internet and claiming to be something like that is they take their digital camera and they take a picture of what's behind their laptop and make that their desktop, and even go to the lengths of, you know, they've got cables and things that are around it, lining things up. So basically, they take a picture of what's behind it, make it their desktop, and then take a picture from over here of the whole thing, so it looks like you're seeing right through right through it. It sounds like what you're talking about is taking a camera and doing the same thing, except having it actually be live and
Actually,
cool.
Yeah, live. It would, you know, there's a little bit of delay, but it looked like pretty cool.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. Does sound pretty cool.
Kind of wow. I mean, we're a little bit ways off from actually having screens that don't have a physical mass and they're laser based or something like that. But that was kind of the next coolest thing.
That'd be a cool way to give yourself an office window.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, if you're running live video as your desktop, 24 hours a day, that's probably about the least efficient thing you could do as far as productivity, but it looks cool. So that's,
Well, most of this stuff isn't about efficiency. It's about
right.
looking good.
Exactly. And I mean, there's the desktop I'm running here is fairly bare, was still, I think, looking decent. Everything I run in KDE tends to be much more on the stupidly bloated side. I'll sometimes run a half dozen different Super Karamba themes that are all over the desktop, and I run dual monitors, so the right monitor might be almost entirely Super Karamba themes underneath. It's really kind of silly, but people come over and they look like, wow, that looks really cool. And okay, my job was done then. Anyone else?
What's the best? I mean, I'm a text guy. I hate GUIs totally. I mean, my world, I exist in probably about 50 tabbed windows inside of an Xterm or in terms of secure CRT on Windows. And that's kind of how my world exists. But as far as one of the things I used to like about KDE when I was running KDE, this was many years back, was the ability to do so many different keyboard commands. I mean, I hate mice. I don't want to use a mouse or actually a window manager. Window managers for me get in the way. But actually having, what's the best desktop out there that has really good keyboard navigation? Screen.
There's a couple that are designed to not. Rat Poison is one. Rat Poison is a really, really basic screen manager or a window manager that is designed to have everything done through keyboard shortcuts. There's a couple other basic ones like TWM and I think PWM are also really basic in that regard, but Rat Poison I think is the hands down most keyboard centric window manager in that regard.
Rat Poison's like one step up from screen. You can't really get any more basic.
It's not that different from screen, really, when you're running, split screens and everything. It's just you can view images if you need to.
Embedded in a tabbed browsing works. It's just awesome for me.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
You reminded me of something too that I forgot to mention. Console does tabs really nicely when you have a lot of terminals. What a lot of people don't know in Fluxbox, and you can do this with any window that you've got in Fluxbox, you can do this with. I tend to just do it with the terminals. You can take your two terminals. If you middle click on the title here, you see I'm just dragging the title around now. I drop that into here. I now have both of these basically tabbed. What I can also do, I've got Conquer over here. Well, it's also just another window. I can drop that into Fluxbox, and now all three of these are being managed in one little block. They're grouped together. You can set Fluxbox to boot up and group things like this automatically when it starts up. I only really see a use for this for me in managing terminals, but then I'm mostly using Fluxbox to manage terminals. But I mean, there's a lot of potential for that in ways you could apply it. It's, you know, I'm sure there's other people that have lots of uses for this to join random other things together. Maybe you're doing image editing and you could have, you know, a file manager on one window, be running the GIMP in another, and have them all as part of the same thing. That maybe perhaps that would be useful to somebody, and then you can drag it right back out again with another middle click. So that's another pretty neat thing about Fluxbox that you know, a lot of people using this. You don't know these things are there. You know, it's not something I need to do my everyday work, but once you know it's there, it's helpful. Anyone else?
What about some of the more 3D, three-dimensional window managers that let you physically, or
Like Looking Glass?
stuff like that, you know, rotate out? There's all sorts of things that I've seen. Like I know on the Macs you've got the OS X. With OS X you could do something that rotates the screens out, and gives you virtual desktops. Some other weird stuff. Again, I don't spend much time in a GUI, so I don't.
The thing that comes to my mind mostly is the Looking Glass project. It's like a 3D desktop, and you can like take the windows and you can spin them around in 3D, and destroy your graphics card, you know, in the process. But again, it's one of those. They claim it's something that will make you more efficient because you can move things around in 3D. Mostly, it's pretty, which is cool too. But I don't know that it really makes you more productive. It's cool to look at though. The Mac may do a much better job of it. Yeah.
Is there anything that gives you like a fisheye view? Like what focuses on the center part and then it puts the other out of focus?
That's an interesting question. I feel like I've seen stuff that does that, but I can't seem to think anything off the top of my head.
Deer does that.
I almost want to say Enlightenment might have something like that. Enlightenment's really out there as far as how they do almost everything. It's really pretty. It's got a lot of really cool visual effects. I couldn't really seem to get used to using it, but
I just felt like when I loaded Enlightenment on anything that I was like playing like Grand Theft Auto instead of actually using a desktop.
yeah, it's got things where like you can have it like do a water effect on the bottom of the screen, so there'll be like a couple inches up, that's the water line, and it's reflecting what's just above that on what's below, and you see like the shimmering water ripples. It's got a lot of these little eye candy things. When I used it, it didn't seem to really eat too many resources while I was running that neat stuff. But at the same time, I didn't need water shimmering on my desktop, and the way it manages things, it's not as intuitive as some other things. But I feel like it might have had something like what you're talking about. I would say that would be the one to look at of any of these, because I don't recall seeing that anywhere else except maybe Enlightenment. Anyone else?
You set it up like they have in a hackers where you're just going around from the tower to tower to view each terminal.
Yeah. I don't think anybody's made a hacker's window manager that I know of.
Thank God.
There's a window manager
Is there?
that uses the Doom engine. You can go around through your file system.
Well, it's a file manager.
Files,
Yeah, that's.
delete them.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah, you can kill running processes with it. With like the shotgun and the chainsaw.
And the more you shoot your
Yeah.
process, the lower the nice value goes. So it finally dies.
The other problem with that is, if you remember from Doom, monsters in Doom will every now and then attack each other. So even if you're not killing processes, they'll eat each other every now and then. It's like kind of like process Darwinism. Yeah, that's a really cool hack. I'm trying to remember what the name of that. It's called
I haven't seen that.
PS Doom.
Yeah, PS Doom. Yeah, PS Doom. There's another file manager that somebody wrote where it's similar to that, but it's like a spatial kind of file manager. You go around with a shotgun, not Doom, just like a whole new thing he made where you go around with a shotgun and kill processes that manages processes. His manages files. That's what it was. You go around and instead of just RMing a file, you open this up and you take out a shotgun and you destroy it, and that's how you get rid of your file. So that's pretty cool.
I'm asking this for someone else because I'm too scared to ask it. But Imperium saw hackers for the first time last night. He was wondering what window manager that is.
Wow.
If I remember right, they had. As far as I know, that never ever existed in real life. They had a graphics department that created that, and I don't think it even actually ran on those machines they were using. I think I want to say they edited that in later, but I could be wrong on that. But I know that
They had full 3D on a Duo, on a Mac Duo.
I know they were Macs. It's been so long since I've seen that movie, but nothing actually was running like what they had.
Also, Imperium wanted to know if the new ClamAV comes with flu shots for rabbits.
No. Any non-Imperium related questions? Definitely non-Imperium related?
Me?
Yes.
Oh, I look at you looking past me. Yeah, it's not Imperium related. In 80 has a question for you that he's
Not that. Yeah, why is Illusion so gay? I was dying to ask.
He wants to know what you're doing tonight. But that's just he was too much of a wuss to ask himself. He's got a big old personal fan.
All right.
So I guess that covers the.
Did you see the Jurassic Park when they had to turn the power back on and turn all the systems?
That was SGI stuff, I believe, actually in Jurassic Park.
Visual thing going on there.
I don't know if was that SGI.
Yeah, what was that for Jurassic Park?
That's what he was asking. Yeah.
What was Trinity using in the Matrix when she?
Nmap.
See, she was using a CLI. What the hell? You need these GUIs for?
Yeah.
Like web browsers and
What's the web? Is that like Gopher?
Prawn. You need a GUI for prawn.
There's no better reason needed.
Text prawn works.
I'm not gonna say no.
We're done here.
Oh, that reminded me of another random thing that's not really desktop stuff. It's just cool. That.
Yeah.
There's something totally useless for you. Cockalib. I like Cockalib. Absolutely.
Using a GUI for that.
Set your background.
Yeah. I'm I'm using a GUI to run text flames.
Can you like put some logs in it and like set
No.
What about the
So you
text
can
fish
start
test?
overclock your laptop, and you'll have a little fire going in the winter. Just put your hands out.
You need marshmallows.
Set that as your background and have it read the output from your G-Chrome. Because doesn't the output from programs change the flames?
Well, these are just randomly generated flames. It's just a simple little script. No, this is just a stupid little demo that shows you what Cockalib could do. That's all. Or libcaca. I can show you Notacon through it, but
Yeah, we watched
Yes.
it last night a little bit.
yeah,
Not Friday night.
yeah, it works well for. If I still have Notacon, yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's last year's Notacon.
That's a video, a DVD through text.
Yes.
See, why do you need to go? Exactly what I'm talking about.
And that would be cause.
How big?
We'll see how well this goes. So
Now what
this
happens
entire thing has been
That is libcaca.
because I tried to
Well, it's what I'm actually using. MPlayer has yes. Go to their webpage. Their logo is a little piece of poop.
No, he's serious.
It really is. And you can patch SDL with support for this, so anything that can use SDL can theoretically, anything that uses SDL can theoretically be run through this. So he has screenshots of Doom in this. But it's not playable apparently. But you can run it and look at it.
This I think we have to have on the big screen.
We've had it on the big screen. Oh, you mean High Linux Fest? We were running video through this thing last night or the night before last. But fun little toy. Totally, completely silly and useless, but neat. But any other questions about anything? Okay, cool. You have one, Imperium? Is it about somebody being gay?
Oh my God.
Oh, he's waving tickets. Okay, I think that's it.
Can you, hey, they have a Rope 13 plugin for that? So you
I
can
don't-
encrypt your video with Rope 13 on text?
I'll get on writing that. I don't like people to view my video and understand what it is.
That'd be great to use that to actually display like program text, the actual code.
Yeah.
Take a video of